When you think of Vikings, what comes to mind? Horned helmets? Brutal raids? Unstoppable warriors storming through Europe? While some of this is rooted in reality, the true story of the Vikings is far more complex, and far more fascinating. Vikings weren't just mindless raiders, they were skilled sailors, traders, explorers, and, yes, fierce warriors. Originating from Scandinavia, modern-day Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, Vikings emerged around the late 8th century and became one of the most feared groups in history. But how did these warriors become legends of battle? And what made their combat style so effective that it left an imprint on history that echoes to this day? The Viking Age officially began in 793 AD, with a raid on Lindisfarne, a monastery on the coast of England. This brutal attack shocked Europe and marked the start of nearly 300 years of Viking expansion. Viking warriors traveled in longships, expertly crafted for navigating rivers and open seas. These ships allowed them to strike unexpectedly, raiding coastal settlements, then vanishing before armies could respond. Their ships were lightweight, fast, and could carry dozens of warriors. The agility of these ships gave the Vikings the upper hand, making their invasions swift and deadly. One of the keys to Viking success was their weaponry. Vikings preferred axes and swords, but they also used spears, shields, and occasionally bows. The axe, often considered the Vikings' signature weapon, was a symbol of power and versatility. Unlike swords, which were expensive to make, axes were accessible to all warriors and could be thrown or wielded with deadly accuracy. Despite popular myth, Vikings did not wear horned helmets. Instead, their helmets were simple but effective, designed to protect without restricting vision. Among Viking warriors, the most feared were the berserkers. These warriors were known to fight in a trance-like fury, leading the charge in battle and spreading terror among their enemies. Berserkers were thought to channel the spirits of wild animals, particularly bears and wolves, wearing animal skins to symbolize their transformation. Their rage made them unpredictable and ruthless. Modern historians believe berserkers may have used herbal or psychological techniques to enter a state of intense focus and aggression, making them some of the earliest recorded examples of shock troops. Viking combat wasn't just about brute strength, it was highly strategic. Vikings fought in tight formations, relying on their shields to form a defensive wall. They advanced slowly, staying close together and using spears and axes to strike their enemies from behind the safety of their shields. This shield wall was a formidable defense, especially effective in close-quarters combat. As one of the earliest forms of organized battle formations, the Viking shield wall was a tactic that influenced warfare for centuries. Though the Vikings were warriors, they were also master traders and explorers. They established trade routes reaching as far as Byzantium and Baghdad, trading goods such as furs, weapons, and even slaves. Their explorations didn't stop in Europe. Vikings also reached Iceland, Greenland, and even parts of North America, centuries before Columbus. By the 11th century, the Viking Age began to decline. This was partly due to the growing power of European kingdoms, but also because many Vikings began converting to Christianity and settling down. With the spread of Christianity, the raiding culture began to fade. Many former warriors became settlers and integrated into European societies, leaving their violent past behind. The Vikings were not only warriors but also ambitious explorers and conquerors, expanding their reach across Europe. As they sailed from Scandinavia, their raids and settlements stretched across England, Ireland, France, and as far south as the Mediterranean. These fierce warriors left an indelible mark wherever they went. In England, Vikings seized vast lands and established the Danelaw, an area governed by Viking laws and customs. This territory eventually influenced English culture, law, and language, leaving traces that are still evident today. To the south, the Vikings raided coastal towns in France, repeatedly attacking Paris. The Franks, desperate to stop the raids, offered the Vikings land in what is now Normandy. The Norse settlers there would eventually become the Normans, who went on to shape European history in profound ways. In Eastern Europe, the Vikings traveled along rivers like the Dnieper and Volga, establishing trade routes that connected Scandinavia with the Byzantine Empire and the Islamic caliphates. Known as the Varangians in the east, these Vikings even served as elite guards for Byzantine emperors, blending cultures and forging new alliances. Viking exploration even extended to the Mediterranean. They attacked parts of Spain and Italy, leaving behind both destruction and stories of fierce northern warriors reaching unexpected lands. Through their raids, trades, and settlements, the Vikings weren't just invaders, they were settlers, travelers, and traders who brought new ideas and blended cultures across continents. Their presence reshaped Europe, influencing regions from England to Russia. The Vikings' religion played a significant role in their culture and warfare. They followed Norse paganism, a belief system centered on powerful gods like Odin, the All-Father and god of wisdom, Thor, the protector and god of thunder, and Freya, the goddess of fertility and love. These deities inspired the Vikings' warrior spirit and their desire for glory in battle. To Vikings, dying in battle was not a defeat, it was an honor. Warriors believed that a heroic death would grant them a place in Valhalla, a majestic hall ruled by Odin, where they could feast and prepare for Ragnarok, the end of the world. This belief made them fearless, willing to fight to the death against overwhelming odds. Vikings honored their gods through rituals and sacrifices, often at sacred sites or in nature. They also buried their dead with weapons, food, and valuables, believing these would be needed in the afterlife. Viking burial mounds and ship burials, like those found at Oseberg and Gokstad, reveal their deep connection to their spiritual beliefs. As the Vikings expanded across Europe, their religion began to change. Early raids targeted Christian monasteries, seen as rich and defenseless. But over time, contact with Christian Europe brought about a cultural and religious transformation. By the 10th and 11th centuries, many Viking leaders converted to Christianity, often for political reasons. King Harald Bluetooth of Denmark famously adopted Christianity, uniting his people under one religion and aligning with Christian Europe. Similarly, Viking settlers in Normandy and England integrated Christian practices, blending them with their Norse traditions. Even as Christianity spread, echoes of Norse mythology remained, influencing art, stories, and cultural practices across Scandinavia and beyond. Today, the Vikings' religion continues to fascinate us. From the stories of Odin and Thor to the concept of Valhalla, Norse mythology has inspired countless works of art, literature, and even modern spirituality. The fearless warrior culture of the Vikings, rooted in their faith, lives on in our collective imagination. Through their gods, their battles, and their journeys, the Vikings shaped history, leaving behind a legacy that spans religion, culture, and myth. Today, Viking warriors remain iconic figures, inspiring books, movies, and even sports teams. But their true legacy is more than just the tales of fearless fighters, it's the mark they left on history through their explorations, culture, and combat innovations. From their daring voyages to their strategic warfare, the Vikings were not just warriors, they were pioneers, whose courage and skill changed the course of history. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of Viking warriors. If you enjoyed learning about these legendary fighters, hit the like button, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what other historical warriors you'd like us to cover.